Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm filming this on location, and there's a bit of an echo in this room. My apologies in advance for the echo. Let's begin today's video with 3 updates related to the wider US-China technology competition, which we've been following closely for some time now. If you enjoyed today's video, as always, it's a huge help if you can like, and for regular viewers who are currently not subscribed, 45% of regular viewers are not subscribed, and this is a big help too. US outlet Bloomberg reports that the US is considering sanctioning several companies acquired or set up by Huawei. Citing people familiar with the matter, most of the Chinese entities that could be affected were previously identified as chip-making facilities acquired or built by Huawei in a presentation by the Washington-based trade group Semiconductor Industry Association. No final decisions have been made, the people said. The US Commerce Department put Huawei on its entry list in 2019, eventually prohibiting it from working with American companies in almost all circumstances. But if Huawei is constructing and building facilities under the names of other companies without disclosing its involvement, as the Semiconductor Industry Association alleges, it may be able to circumvent these restrictions to indirectly purchase American chip-making equipment and other supplies that would otherwise be prohibited. The Bloomberg piece explains that the companies that could be blacklisted include chip makers, including China's leading memory chip maker, Changxin Memory Technologies Limited. Beyond the companies that actually produce chips, US officials may also sanction Shenzhen Pengjin High-Tech Co. and Si Carrier. Quote, "The concern is that these two companies, which made semiconductor manufacturing gear, are acting as proxies to help Huawei obtain restricted equipment." End quote. Japan-based Nikkei Asia published a piece over a year ago discussing Huawei's relationship with several of these companies to get around US sanctions imposed in 2019 through 2020. The Nikkei Asia piece expresses, quote, "With the help of local governments across China, Huawei and its partners are working on a new chip production and assembly network in Beijing, Wuhan, Qingdao, and Huawei's home base, Shenzhen, with investments estimated at more than 400 billion yuan, $55.8 billion US. The goal is simple: to replace foreign manufacturers and suppliers and bring back Huawei's key chip production for telecom base stations, surveillance cameras, and smartphones, and venture into the automotive chip business." End quote. Semiconductor Industry Association warned about all of this in April last year. This has led some commentators to ask, why has it taken so long for the US Department of Commerce to act? Meanwhile, next up, Apple CEO Tim Cook is in Shanghai this week for his annual trip to attend the China Development Forum and the opening of Apple's new Shanghai store in the Jing'an district of the city. Apple is the poster child of an American company highly reliant on both the Chinese market as well as China's manufacturing and supply chain networks. Indeed, yesterday in Shanghai, Cook expressed, quote, "There is no place more important than China for our supply chain." End quote. Cook is among a long list of global business executives who are expected to visit China in the coming days for the China Development Forum. Amon of Qualcomm, Borla of Pfizer, and Schwartzman of Blackstone, as well as Dalio from Bridgewater, are all expected to attend this year as well. Cook posted a video of himself walking around Shanghai with a popular local actor. In a Weibo clip seen by 500,000 people within minutes of posting, Cook crossed a bridge near the historic Bund, sampled soup dumplings in a local restaurant, and said hello in the Shanghainese dialect. The third technology update to cover today is related to TikTok. On Wednesday, US senators received a classified briefing on TikTok. Regular viewers know that recently the House passed a de facto ban on TikTok if it doesn't sever ties with Beijing. This bill has now moved to the Senate, where it faces a tougher battle. Washington-based outlet Punchbowl News writes that senators emerged from the classified briefing on TikTok, quote, "with concerns about the social media platform and an increased urgency to act on the House-passed bill forcing a sale of the Chinese-owned company or triggering its ban in the United States." End quote. Senate Intelligence Committee Chair Mark Warner said, quote, "If we don't get a bill done this year, we've missed a huge opportunity. How many times do you get 352 votes for anything in the House?" End quote. Senator Richard Blumenthal said TikTok is, quote, "a gun aimed at Americans' heads." End quote. But Senate Commerce Committee Chair Maria Cantwell was more muted after the briefing, saying that she's interested in holding a hearing on the matter. Cantwell has previously indicated she didn't agree with the House bill, and there may be a reason for this. US-based Politico writes that the former Deputy Chief of Staff and Acting Legislative Director for the senator is lobbying on behalf of TikTok. The former Deputy Chief of Staff left Cantwell's office in August 2020 and joined Millman Consulting in June 2021, where she immediately began working on the TikTok account. The outlet writes, adding, quote, "In the fourth quarter of last year, the firm had 12 lobbyists who were working for TikTok, including her, with the firm getting paid $80,000 that quarter," end quote. Politico, in a separate piece also this week, reported on the many lobbying firms which TikTok retains, including Crossroads Strategies, Denton's US, Mellman Consulting, Ankit Desai's and Partners, and Cozen O'Connor Public Strategies. I'm sure they will be working overtime in the coming weeks. There's been a wider debate in the US too over this bill, with some critics concerned with speech freedoms. Others argue that in the era of globalization and free trade, the US government blocking foreign ownership of technology platforms seems extreme and unpractical. Others do not like the idea of the US government banning foreign companies generally. Commentators from across the political spectrum have pushed back against these arguments, however. For example, in a piece in The Atlantic called "Critics of the TikTok Bill Are Missing the Point," lawyer-politician Zaifer Teachout argued this week, quote, "The idea that we must enact barriers to foreign government surveillance and political interference is actually a very old one, embedded in both American history and the logic of democratic self-determination. Forbidding a hostile foreign power from controlling a major communication platform fits into a long and important tradition of American self-government. Limits on foreign ownership have been part of federal communications policy for more than a century. The Radio Act of 1912 was the first federal limitation on ownership of communications infrastructure, forbidding foreign ownership of radio stations. It expanded and set a blueprint for later communications rules. Rupert Murdoch, for example, had to become an American citizen to avoid Federal Communications Commission rules banning foreign owners of American TV networks, which were based on the twin fears of espionage and propaganda. TikTok, of course, falls right at the intersection of those fears." End quote. Next up, according to new central bank data, net new yuan bank loans to China's non-banking financial institutions in February last month surged to the highest level since July 2015. The loans reached 404.5 billion yuan, $86.9 billion last month, more than 23 times the amount in February 2023. In contrast, net new yuan loans in total in February dropped almost 20% year-on-year. What should we make of this? Well, Chinese financial media outlet Caixin argues that this is a sign that the loans could have been used by state-backed investors to prop up the stock market. The outlet writes that in July 2015 and February 2024, significant increases in non-bank loans occurred during crises in the A-share market and were believed to be related to financial support from the so-called national team. These are the state-run players Beijing uses to prop up the stock market. State-owned CSF and Central Huijin Investment Limited, the domestic arm of sovereign wealth fund China Investment Corp, were both major actors in the government-led stock market rescue campaign in 2015. Both are categorized as non-banking financial institutions. China Great Wall Security Co. Limited analysts connected the recent surge in non-banking loans to Central Huijin's February 6th announcement that it had expanded holdings in exchange-traded funds that track stock indexes, and that it would continue to do so. Thus, there is strong evidence to suggest that Beijing is indeed extending large loans to these national team players to pump billions of dollars into propping up the stock market. Meanwhile, two global funds, long cautious about Chinese equities, have turned bullish. Norway-based Sakgin AES and its US counterpart, Boston Partners, have both turned overweight shares listed in mainland China and Hong Kong in recent months, citing cheap valuations, significantly priced in financial and regulatory risks, and improved earnings as key reasons. Is now the right time to move back into Chinese equities? Of course, only time will tell, but I would be interested to know what you think in the comments below. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a good Thursday, and I will see you all tomorrow.